Okay, today's video we're going to talk about running PPC campaigns, whether or not you should basically spend your money to get people really super close to your business, or does it really not matter, and can I get them from anywhere, like throughout the US, throughout my country? Is the ROI pretty much the same wherever I go? If that is, we're assuming you have the choice to do, mainly local or farther away. Respectively, the ROI definitely is better once you get real close to your location, whether you're e-commerce or non-e-commerce. And you can actually take advantage of this. You don't even have to change your offer, but just knowing the information I'm going to give you, you could tweak your pitch in a little bit more than what you normally would have, and you can get a little bit extra profit just out of the ads that you already have. Long story short, though, if you have budget, instead of just shotgun spraying it all across the country, for the most part, most businesses, most of you guys out there should be focusing on getting everything you can that's super local first, because it has a much higher ROI, which I'm going to talk about for the type of business that you have, and some case studies here. Talk about how much you could specifically earn more if you put more of the budget that you have overall, your monthly budget, towards cherry picking those super local ones in your same city or same zip code. And I'll explain how and why, and how you, again, like I said, you can execute this for your business to pick up some free extra cash from your business that would basically no or very little extra work, okay? So how much is a customer worth near my business versus a little farther away, whether that's the same region, state, whatever, or somewhere else in the country? Now, I'll start off by saying, well, a question most people ask at some point in time in their business, whether or not this becomes a question they recurrently ask themselves, is how much am I making from a customer who's local to my area versus somewhere else? Because people think, well, where should I actually be putting my budget as I described it? Should I be spending more of it to get people local, or should I go elsewhere? Obviously elsewhere, people can have higher incomes unless you're already in the top income area, like the entire country or region that you're at. And then that's a factor. But if they're local, you can understand the person better if you're speaking with them one-on-one when they call and whatnot, or email. You can use the same lingo. People just naturally trust people that are local. And for a business, let's just say like a hair restoration company. If you're a celebrity person in the hair restoration space, you can do just by your office, or you can go further away. So you have to make the decision, do I want people that are in these wealth pockets that have more money that I can cherry pick in each wealth pocket in each major city across the US, or should I go right where I'm at, but there's only so much volume there, and therefore I can't just do Beverly Hills. If I'm in LA, I have to do LA as a whole, which LA as a whole doesn't have the income as would be all the wealth pockets across the U.S. combined, Billionaires Row in New York, whatever. You get my point, to where you have a decision to make whether or not how I should distribute my budget. Do I go and do a little bit here and there, or do I focus it all local? Given that local, I know these people better, I can sell to them better. There's things we can say when we're local that we can't say when we're not local, which gets more response rates from our ads. So I'm not saying that even though local is better, you don't have to do obviously just local. I'm just here to give you the information so you could make the scenario that I drew out for you, how you're going to be able to make that decision for your business better. Giving you real world examples of where I actually did one versus the other, and see the difference in results it can get you. But before I get into the actual case studies, there's several factors here to consider into making these kind of decisions, whether I'm going to use most of my budget to go local or further out here. Three main things that affect your decision. So the first one is faster shipping or lower gas costs. So if you're e-commerce business, or you're doing shipping of the goods or whatever you have there, physically shipping them out, obviously, basically you can get it there faster, which when you get it there faster, you could say in your advertising that you can get it there faster. You could say on the phone when you talk to somebody that you can get it there faster, or by email. That automatically will get you a higher conversion rate on your campaigns than if somebody was further out, as you know. And particularly anymore, by the way, things have changed so much in the last 15 years since they've started. People were happy to get it within a week before. Now people expect it in 2 days a lot of times. A lot more than what you think. Enough to where there's all kinds of services springing up that allow you to ship your goods to them, and they have distribution outlets across the US to where you can guarantee 2-day shipping times, and that right there can be your edge to make your campaigns in your market work versus not being able to compete because people want 2-day instead of 3 to 4 day shipping. So, or guaranteed 2-day shipping, and be that being a key factor all in itself that determines whether or not somebody's going to buy from you or somebody else, upwards of 50 to 100% more. In some markets, it really is that sensitive. Lower gas costs, if you're a service company, depending on how far out you obviously have to drive, that's a factor. When you have a lot of trucks that have to go out for bigger jobs, that's a lot more extra cost. You got wear and tear, you're beating the truck up, whatever. You can make more if you could get more of your customers closer to your office, obviously. So that's definitely something, if you're in services, that you should think about. If you're a regional company and you got to do stuff like foundation repair, we had a client doing that, you got to pretty much do statewide out in the square states out in flyover country, and that's a major factor for them and just in general. If you're in that situation, you might have to drive 60 miles to get to somebody. If you could get somebody that's within 10 miles and focus at least for what your budget, try to get everything you can out of the 10 within 10 miles, particularly by bidding a little bit more because it's going to cost 10 times as much to drive 60 miles away as it would be within 5 miles of your office in terms of operational cost. That's an embellishment, but you get my point. You can understand that going in and say that even though I can't get all the volume I want within 10 miles of my office, I'm at least going to spend, let's say, 50% more within 10 miles because that's going to be a lot more profitable, even though I have to spend 50% more for that customer than it would be to spend basically get more people from 50 miles away, whereas the cost is basically doubled for that job versus half. If you get my point. So that's a factor in itself to make your decision. 2, perceived out of trust. So if you're local, people trust you more if you're local. We always put in for a service company, we put in our ads, I'll actually make a list of every city that's over 10,000 population in the metro. Like if we're in Denver, I'll make a list of all the little cities around Denver that are over 10K in population, and I'll make sure that if they're in that specific little area called, Georgetown, whatever there's not really a Georgetown there, but they see an ad that says, basically pest control Georgetown. Why? Because they know that we deliver in that area, because that's a question that's on the top of your mind. But you're going to trust, on top of that, you're also going to trust a company from Georgetown because I'm local. It's just like saying you're going to go out and do an email campaign and you're saying to people that I went to the same college as you. It's almost the same effect as that, but not to that degree or that level. But it's the same kind of concept, if you will. A lot of people underestimate this. This actually makes a bigger difference than you think, which I'll explain why in a moment. 3, moving forward. 3, customers, when you get them, actually stay longer. The big one that nobody's really thinking about, which is why I wanted to make this video, make people, particularly you guys that are subscribing, aware of this stuff so you can better plan your campaigns. That will actually, once you get the customer, you get the pest control customer, because they contacted you and because you were local and that was the type of person they were, to where they liked the fact that you were from Georgetown, going back to my previous example, that later on, when your 1-year contract is up and they're deciding whether or not they're going to go after the person, where they got a flyer saying that they offer it for $10 cheaper a month, because it's usually sold on a subscription plan if you didn't know how that business works, you're a lot less likely to be sniped from a competitor that way, unless, of course, that person's from Georgetown too. So you're building a kind of a moat around your business in that case, more when a higher proportion of your customers are in the same town as you, because you've done deliberate things to get a higher proportion of customers local to your town, or maybe even your zip code or metro area, like I'm going to explain in a moment, to where they're going to stay longer, you're going to have a higher LTV or lifetime value. value, your average value per customer will be higher, given less people will drop off. You'll churn less customers at a less frequent rate. Okay, so that's a big factor in itself that a lot of people don't think about. So that one thing now can be your edge, if you will, in your market. So they're going to come with you a higher percentage of the time because you're closer and you're doing more to spend more of your budget closer, and then they're going to stay with you longer, and you combine those two factors plus the factor of your campaigns are going to get higher click-through rates in that case, which will drop your cost per click. You got three factors there that raise your ROI. Now you could start to see why you want to be able to deliberately do as much as possible, we'll just say, to get people that are closer first before venturing outside, unless you're, in a situation where, you should at least to the degree, if you know you have to have a person that has $1 million a year income and you're in Beverly Hills, instead of going to LA, there's certain distance out that you'll go. But you at least, with that certain distance, before you go into, Scottsdale, Arizona, where the average income is just as high as Beverly Hills, you don't go to Scottsdale until, or should I say Paradise Valley would be a better example in Phoenix. I'm from Phoenix. Before you actually take every customer you can from Beverly Hills, because it has now the target demographic, but it also has the sticky factor of people that are in Beverly Hills want to deal with somebody from Beverly Hills because they trust them more, they'll stay longer, all those other things I said. Okay, so I kind of laid all that out, what makes the ads do better. Now I'll give you examples of how much they do better and by the type of business that you have, that whole thing. So having studied several e-commerce and non-e-commerce businesses before doing this video, just to find out, because I was curious how much more this actually has an effect on your results. I always knew it did, but I formally did a study with our clients, asked a few of our clients within each one of these buckets here so I could explain to you in a more concise way why you want to be doing this or why you should be taking it more seriously perhaps than a fleeting thought that you may have had one or two times before. So with the number crunching, this is what I found for a non-e-commerce versus an e-commerce business here. And if you're doing non-e-commerce, if you're national service versus a local service, you're doing countrywide versus are you doing like city or statewide or region-wide would be the difference there. So I asked 3 people within each one of these 3 categories, or I just looked at their campaigns and found the data myself. Part of the data I could find myself. Part of it I had to ask the client and these aren't exact numbers because I'm not going to ask them to go do a bunch of homework for me. I just ask them to ballpark it, okay? But at least I had 3 different numbers or 3 different example companies to add together to find out what the general ballpark would be for each one of these groups here, niche groups here that I'm going to explain. So the first one here, so I asked 3 for each. The first category I'm going to talk about is non-e-commerce businesses that are local. So electrical service, plumbing service, foundation repair service, photography service, anything like that. It could be even products that you sell locally in store. This also would apply too, by the way. With that, the fact that if we're talking about the same zip code at the very least, or the same small pocket of the city that you're in, like I gave the Georgetown example before, if the difference between that and what you're going to be able to get from the entire metro area where you're at, or the entire state in general, your campaign ROI right off the top, being able to say that you're from that area in terms of the increased click-through rates, which will get you more clicks from the small pocket that's doing better than average, and you know what that is because you do tracking on your account. Wink, wink, you should do that. And secondarily to that, you get a cheaper rate per click from Google because the click-through rate's now higher. You can automatically count on a roughly 40% increase in ROI from your campaigns just looking at the campaign level there. Going further though, like I mentioned, this goes further than just looking at campaign ROIs at a surface level. Loyalty factor / lifetime value factor here. So in terms of, though, to be specific, out of the people you get, how much more will they spend with you? If you're super local with them, they're from your little pocket of the city and they know that, on average you're getting about 30% more money from each person than you're going to get from the other side of town, just in general there. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. But that's not it. You know, the third factor here, which is the overhead. How much you're going to drop your overhead going super local, which you probably know this off the top of your head a lot more than what I could represent here by my grouping of companies where I drew this data from. In general, when I was asking my clients, I got about 20, they said that they were spending about 20% less, or let's just say that's not right. The ROI of the job was 20% better in general. They cut their overhead by 20% in general. I guess you could technically call it that, to where the ROI is, you know, the cost of doing the job, therefore the ROI, but it's not exactly the same number, but roughly, we should just say they cut 20% of the cost it took to do the job, and therefore the ROI of the job was about 20% better by being super, super local within, 5 miles of their office there versus all over the metro area. Because normally, on every campaign that we work on, we're doing about 30 miles to 60 miles outside the metro area because it's sellable, just generally speaking. Not always, but generally speaking. With that, normally, like I mentioned before, I break it up so that each little city that's in that whole metro area, we have campaigns so that the ad can say that, that local city on the ad, and the landing page further, because now you can send them to a custom landing page just for that city. It'll also say the city name above the fold before you scroll on the landing page, so we can get more out of the campaigns itself, right? With that, we know the overhead is going to be less, and so generally what I ask is, how much more are you making for somebody super local versus farther away? And then I'll add a bid adjustment to just those super local campaigns because we've broken them out by city, or it could be by zip code if you do things that way. It's another way of doing it instead of by city like I was talking about, to where we're going to do a plus 50% increase in bids if they're within that same city where their office is physically located, because that client says, they're making at least 50% more. That gives us a better ROI for the client overall, which you should be able to do for yourself. Now, understanding what it costs, but don't just factor what you're going to cut costs. Like I said, you got to know that you're going to get about a 30% higher stay rate or revenue per customer, and you're also going to get about a 40% increase in your click-through rate, your ROI on your campaigns themselves on top of everything else. So if you looked at everything combined, you're looking at around 75% increase in ROI from your campaign once you factor in the ROI of the campaign itself due to the quality scores and the increase in click-through rate from the part of the campaign that's more profitable in general and higher conversion rates, and then the loyalty factor added in there and the drop in costs that you're going to have added in there. You're going to make almost twice as much money within your same city or within that same zip code, if you will, within your big metro area where you're targeting. It could be the whole state, could be actually the whole region for some of you guys out there in general. So big difference in the ROI we should be able to bid 50% more if they're super local. Why? Because our ROI is going to be plus 75% on that. So it's just going to give us a little bit more than what we profit, all just by making a slight adjustment and being willing to bid a little bit more for what's super close to us. Why? Because when you bid more, you're going to get more search impression share, which means the amount of times your ad shows up. A lot of people just think it's either there or it's not. No, there's 20 ads in a lot of markets that are cycling in and out of those top 4 spots. And the more you pay, the more time you're basically assuring yourself that you're going to show up in those top 4 spots for every time someone searches for the keywords that you're bidding on. And you're also going to show up higher, which can also get you a higher click-through rate. So, respectively, there's a limit in which you bid up to get more and more impression share from your keywords to where the ROI is not worth it for you anymore. But now that you know the ROI is automatically better, super close to where you're at, you're willing to get a little bit more impression share there by bidding higher. So you'll bid higher to get even more customers, or just spend a higher percentage of your budget closer to where you're at, and therefore you're going to end up with more money. That's how the main thing I'm trying to convey to you. From a set budget, you can make more money by being a little bit more aggressive, very close to you, and that's all there is to it. Now, if you're not a local service or local product company, if you're a national seller of services, basically, okay, if you're a national seller of products, it'll be called eCommerce National, which I have here. By marketing to the person in the same city where you're at, so normally what I'll do by default is if you're a 3D design company, we'll target everybody nationally looking for a 3D design company, but within the same city, LA, if the agency for that I'm working with is in LA, everybody within LA now in that general metro area, not LA itself, let's say LA County, is going to be we're going to be bidding more aggressively, like I mentioned last time how we do this. Why? Because the ROI is much better, much better actually. When you're trying to hire a company nationally, trust is even way more of a bigger issue, because you hire someone to fix your broken toilet, they screw it up, what are they going to do? You know, crack your toilet? Oh my gosh, like whatever. If you hire somebody for sales training and they screw it up, you lost 50 grand plus all the time, which is even more valuable to most people. So the fact that you're local in the same city says a lot. You get a lot of kudos points for being local, because they now trust you way more than what they would as if you're hiring somebody in New York while you're in LA, and vice versa. So if you're in the same city as the person in your ad now, you should have a separate campaign just for your city, because this is such a big opportunity to where if they're in LA, the ad says LA and the landing page says LA, whereas everybody else, it can say LA on your landing page still, not on your ad, but on the landing page, somewhere on the page near the bottom, but you really stick it in front of their face if they're from LA on the landing page there to get the most out of this. And that's how you, and then so because we want to grab as much as we can from LA first. And the way that you make sure somebody, when they're in LA, sees your LA ad and landing page that you have specifically for LA is you have LA as a negative location on the national campaigns that you have that pick up everything that's outside of LA. That's how you do that, if you were wondering. But overall, clients will be getting over 200% ROI difference in their own city. They're going to respond at a much higher rate. They're going to, when they get them on the phone, they're going to buy from you at a much higher rate because they're going to feel comfortable. Just the way that you sound. If you have a southern accent and somebody calls from the south, they're going to trust you way more just from that one factor. But there's other things. You can talk to them about local sports teams. You understand how to scratch their back better in general. So your ROI from your campaigns, though themselves, is the bigger thing here, because when they see LA 3D Design Company, way more likely to click on the ad. You're talking about, instead of, you could have a 3% click-through rate before, just the fact that it says LA in the headline, you're going to go 7-8%. Just that one factor alone. So you want to do that for yourself. And with that, they buy it at a much higher rate. In general, so the conversion rate itself is baked into this 150%, the increase in conversion rates there. You'll get a big jump in your conversion rate, upwards of almost 100%. But on top of that, you also have the factor of loyalty, increase in loyalty. The person now stays at a higher rate in which they did before, because they hired you because they trust you more. So therefore, they're less likely to switch to somebody else who ain't local if you got that person who wanted local in the first place. So now you have an increase in ROI, or the LTV will be up about 25% more than it was before. So when you factor in, you get more out of each person, and the ROI on the campaign itself goes up a considerable amount just from the quality scores, increase in conversion rate, increase in click-through rate. Now you have over 200% ROI difference in your little city compared to everything else. So you want to do everything you can to get every person from your city first before venturing out. Instead of just going outside your city for that reason alone. So you see, that one's a way bigger difference than even the local services, which is good by itself. Okay. Last, we have eCommerce National. So just eCommerce in general. I have this for you guys as well. So even for you e-commerce guys and gals out there, like I explained how you set this up for your national, if you have a national service that you're offering, to where you have campaigns that are just for your city, and then if they're not in your city, they see a regular ad and landing page. But if they're in your city, you make sure that they absolutely always know right away and continue through clicking through to the landing page that you're local. It's the same thing with this e-commerce. But you do it in a different way here. It's not just like, you do it in a different way. Specifically, what you can do with you e-commerce guys out there and gals, you could say, respectively, free 2-day shipping, or if you got some cojones here on you, you could say free 1-day shipping. Now you're even beating Amazon. Obviously, Amazon can do 1-day shipping, but respectively, they don't think they necessarily, when the shipping options say that per se. But if you got any of your other competition that are not at Amazon, nobody can say that for sure. Some can say 2 now, because like I said, it's getting more common that people have to offer 2 just to stay competitive. Out of everything, in terms of what, if they're ordering something they can't tell the difference that much of product to product, the product price is the #1 decider, generally speaking. But there's a lot of people who don't want low quality. So the people who don't want low quality, the main other factor they have to decide on is the shipping time, respectively, for most e-commerce products, okay? Now when you say 1-day shipping, now that you've just narrowed it down and made it easy for them to decide, because they're like, oh, what do I decide? What do I decide? 1-day shipping? Oh, okay, I go with that one. So you have a 30% increase in your campaign ROI by being able to say, free 2-day shipping in the ad or where you're taking the person to, whether it's a landing page or the product page on the site or the category page or search results page. So you have that right away. If you're in niche where you sell something for more than $100 on your e-commerce site, you got to expect to be able to generally make a good ROI from that campaign, that people can call you and they talk to a product expert on the phone, because otherwise somebody else will do it for them and they'll feel more comfortable going with them. Just as a small side to this whole video. But once you get them on the phone, just the fact that you are talking their language, you have their accent, going back to that whole thing, they'll actually buy from you. You'll get higher close rates on that sale or higher conversion rates too, on top of everything. So you get a bump of about 30% a lot of times just on the campaign by taking your normal ad, making it say 2 or even 1-day shipping. If you do 1-day shipping, it can be more than 30% ROI on your campaigns. You add in the fact that you could talk to them, you can get another 50 to 100% ROI on your campaigns, saying that by having most of the time, we won't actually go to the extent that we'll have the local campaigns there. So if they're in the same city, we can for sure have the ads say 2-day shipping, or it might be a little bit further out than just the city itself, because we know we can do 2-day shipping as long as they're in the same state or group of states. There's some different ways to play this, to where in that campaign you have dedicated for your city or close to your city, you could have on your site, when they get to it, a local area code, which will pick up conversion rates to a call, which if they call more often, you're going to get them to buy it more often. On top of just the fact that when they get on the phone, you can start saying, now and you can do this through like a live chat software. You could see the person who called, where they're from, and then you could start talking to them and say, hey, where are you from? Not to say, hey, I know you're in XYZ, to scare the crap out of them. That's one way you could further capitalize on this, other than the fact that you sound like them, so they'll maybe ask or what have you. But you could technically, if you have a different area code on the site, then when they call, you can there's tools out there, particularly like CallRail. It'll tell you, there's a way using CallRail or call tracking software that they called this number. And with that number being, because you heard what number it was, that person's now local. And then without the live chat software, you can right away explain that you're local, and then the fact, once they start knowing you're local, that's the time where your conversion rate goes up. You can do things that way to help yourself out. You could go also all the way here, and you could say, hey, we're a nationwide company. However, we're based out of Denver here. Just know that you're going to be dealing faster shipping times. And if you ever have a question or have any trouble, you can come bang down our door. This is physically where we're located here. We're right downtown. And that'll get you a higher conversion rate from your landing page. So you can get closer to a 100% increase in ROI if you go through with all those additional steps. And obviously, if you have a campaign just for your city, everything else goes to a different campaign. Your ad says 2-day shipping. There's another option here you can do if you're in Denver, that person's in Denver for that local campaign. You can say 2-day shipping to Denveronians, or however you say that, which will get you a higher click-through rate, and you can get even a 30% increase in ROI from just saying free 2-day or a 1-day shipping there. And then you can layer that on top of when they get to the landing page saying free 1 to 2-day shipping for Denveronians. We're located right here in Denver. If you have a problem, give us a call. If you have any questions, here's the local number, and you can get closer to 100% increase in ROI from those people that are just right there by your city once you add it all up. So I didn't put all the numbers there because generally speaking, this is kind of a nuisance for e-commerce companies to do all those steps, but those are all ideas. I can ratchet up that 30% increase in ROI that you get from just being able to say, and probably be the only one that is offering them free 2-day shipping in your space in terms of the 4 ads there on the top of Google right in front of their face. Therefore, they're going to click on yours at a much higher rate in terms of probably double your click-through rate, which cuts your cost per click by roughly in half, where your 30% increase in ROI comes from. Also, you get a little bit increase in the conversion rate, which also goes into a higher quality score. So this 30% here is actually pretty conservative. From what I've seen in general for the 3 that I have, that's what it averaged out to. But I think over a wider set of data, it would be more than 30%. And once you really start to add all this other stuff saying, here's where we're located, page you're taking them to, makes it really, really apparent that you're local and you have a really nice office, or you have a really, where you have a showroom or really nice office where they can go to for returns or whatever. Now you're talking about closer to 100% increase in ROI. So in general, though, I won't go any further. That's in general what you're talking about when you're trying to allocate your ad budget on Google PPC. Could be also with Facebook. All this stuff applies to all other online advertising, Facebook or Taboola ads, whatever you're doing here, really, to get more out of your same exact budget, which is what this channel is about. How do I take what I'm spending, do a slight tweak to it, and now start making automatically more money than I have been before? If you like the idea, I have a ton of other videos on this channel that go over other videos just like this, or other ideas just like this. If you haven't seen any of my other videos yet, you should definitely check them out. I have a blog at guaranteeppc.com/blog with step-by-step instructions on how to build campaigns that are guaranteed to work for our clients and I use for our clients that I've written personally. You can go there and check that out if you like information along those same lines. Apart from that, if you have any questions about anything I did here, things that you think I should have covered and didn't, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person that leaves me a comment on this channel within a day or 2. Apart from that, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll hopefully see you on the next one. Goodbye.